Internal markets reaction to Nigeria's president-elect. Of course, Bola Tinubu, the incoming president-elect of Nigeria, has a history of increasing taxes and hiring technocrats, according to reports, traits that foreign investors hope would continue under his administration and result in improvements to the currency rate and pricey fuel subsidies. Well, his reputation as a two-term governor of Lagos State, the nation's economic capital, is a major reference point. Tinubu's victory in Saturday's vote with 37% of the vote is being challenged by rivals in court, is said to be widely regarded as a godfather who controlled the mega city Lagos long after his own tenure as state governor, leading some analysts to worry that market-friendly changes will fall victims to politics. Positive signals, however, according to Morgan Stanley, might be the beginning of the phase-out of expensive fuel subsidies, the start-up and operation of a long-awaited oil refinery this year, and a solution to the nation's unstable exchange rates. Bond prices may rise as a result, and the spread or the premium developing market governments pay to borrow money relative to borrowing costs in the United States may decline, and that's according to several analysts' speculations and postulations. So this morning, joining me to further break down how the market has been reacting to Nigeria's president-elect, that is Bola Tinubu, who is set to become the next president of Nigeria, we have Victor Aluyi, who is the senior vice president and head investment, Sankore Global Investments here in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you so much, Victor, for joining us once again to look at this particular dicey and sensitive topic.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Well, it might seem as though we are trying to start before we shouldn't have started, if I could put it that way. Let's quickly look at what might happen in the next 100 days of the emergence of Bola Tinubu by the time he becomes the president of Nigeria. And we want to put it in tandem with what actions you think he should put in place to drive Nigeria's economy on a positive trajectory, because we know that there's been some kind of uncanny and some unpredictable wave in the Nigerian market, as it were. We've heard reports of where we read that investors are not too comfortable with him becoming the president. And in some of the reports, it's like there's been some sort of uptick in what the markets are saying. So what do you think he should be doing right now to galvanize and harmonize and, of course, bring about some sort of growth in the Nigerian, of course, the Nigerian economy and its markets?
All right. I think that it really is all about policy. This is the year where we really cannot afford to kick the can down the road when it comes to critical policy reforms that need to happen in the economy. Top of which is the fact that if you look at the economy over the last couple of years, we have been on a fiscal path that has been essentially debilitating, a path that really is not sustainable. So something really needs to be done. If you look at government revenues over the last couple of years, it's essentially suffered. You also look at our fiscal situation, that has also deteriorated, quite significantly over the last couple of years. So reform on that front that ensures that, the country is on a more sustainable fiscal path becomes really, really critical. Also, FX reform, is extremely important at this time. We've gone through a couple of years where the FX situation has been the elephant in the room, and there has not been any real, cohesive, policy action to address that situation. So I think that when it comes to policy, those are some of the things that, the incoming president would need to address. One of it that will certainly help with, the sort of fiscal path that we are on is the discussion around subsidy. I mean, something has to happen. I don't expect that, subsidy will be removed in one fell swoop. I would expect that we're going to see a staggered or a phased approach to, removing subsidy. On the campaign trail, all of the three candidates have essentially talked about the fact that this is a reform or policy action that they were willing to take. It really remains what, will be done by, the incoming president. But I think that policy move needs to be made. Again, like I said, last year we spent over 4 trillion on subsidy. This year, about 6 trillion has been budgeted. That's a lot of resource that can certainly be freed up to be channeled into more productive areas of the economy. that's a huge resource that can certainly free up our fiscal situation and put us on a more sustainable or a better fiscal footing. So I think that in the first 100 days, I would like to see policy moves or reform in the area of subsidy and also on the FX front as well. So these are two very critical points that I think will give us a really strong indication of what the economy is likely to be like under the incoming administration.
All right. According to reports, between 62 and 65% of Nigeria's current population is made up of youths. And according to the latest reports that we had about the election, about 52% of youths constituted the majority of those that voted in this presidential election. That actually makes them a force to reckon with when it comes to the socio-political discussions and landscape of the country. Now, how do you think that it should address their yearnings? Because, of course, we have this larger portion of the population leaving the country for greener pastures abroad. And, of course, they have some agitations. They have questions that need to be answered. And, of course, they form the bulk of the working labor force, if we could put it that way. So how do you think he should be talking to them or addressing them or addressing their concerns?
I think the issue just boils down to the sort of reforms that are implemented. The reason we have a lot of youths disoriented, you have a lot of people leaving, it really is tied to all of fiscal issues that we're having, all of the FX concerns that we continue to have, which basically dovetail into the issues around economic growth, job opportunities, and all of that. So again, I still think, and I reiterate that, if bold policies, bold reform around subsidy, bold reforms around FX are undertaken, I think it would go a long way in addressing these issues and assuaging the concerns that a large swath of the population would have, and not just even the young people, but all across the population. And I think these reforms would it's not a silver bullet that would make change things overnight, but it is a step in the right direction that will ensure that come in 1 year or in 2 years' time, we are on a much more solid fiscal footing. The FX situation is taken care of. We're clear, at what rates things are exchanging for. It will help to address also the inflation situation that we are having. Other things like security obviously needs to be addressed to ensure that people can conduct businesses in a safe, environment. So I think that these are key issues, low-hanging fruits that need to be addressed. Like I said earlier, this is not the year we can kick the can down the road. Things need to happen. We need to take really bold decisions to ensure that these issues are indeed addressed.
All right, let's look at Nigerians in diaspora, because these certain elements have also been keenly observing, and in some way they have been participating in the 2023 elections, as it were. Some have said they were going to collapse their businesses. Some said they were going to expand their businesses from wherever country they reside down to Nigeria. And some said they were going to offer free services if a particular candidate wins the election. But of course, it didn't happen for them that way. But what we're looking at is on a broader scale of how to incorporate them, how to accommodate them, and see what benefits can come from their side, aside yearly remittances. So how do you think the government or the incoming government should go about bringing or win this set of Nigerians who are in the diaspora to scale up investment opportunities into the country?
Again, it really isn't different from the points that I've made earlier. I mean, I remember, the mid-2000s, you had a wave of Nigerians returning from abroad. You had a lot of returnees who basically came back here to set up businesses and all of that. And I think that we can return to those heydays. It really is around policy. Back then, we want a much more sustainable, much stronger fiscal footing. We didn't have this sort of FX volatility and all that kind of stuff. So I think that once these policies are set in motion, it will ultimately create an environment that people who want to come and who want to relocate back here, who want to return and do their business here, will create an environment that enables them to do that, very successfully, because we've had that, in the past. So it boils down to a lot of the reforms that happen. If we're not bold enough to carry out these reforms, then the conversation we'll be having with people in diaspora would essentially just continue to center around remittances.
All right, I know you said a lot, Victor, but we will still try to pick maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 critical policies that you believe that if the incoming government brings on board, it will be able to bring about some sort of transformation for the Nigerian economy. But then let's quickly look at the Nigerian stock. Before the electoral umpire actually gave his verdict, JP Morgan gave some sort of assessment about Nigerian assets, and he said that based on what he observed, potential problems associated with the Nigerian assets from its national elections were said to be easing, so to speak, which actually speaks about some sort of sentiment and a reduction in tension and apprehension according to the mood of the investors. But then I'd like to know how you would interpret that particular postulation by JP Morgan.
I think for them, it's a case of, the elections had come and, we were essentially leading up to a winner being announced. And for them, it's a case of, okay, the election has come and will certainly go. And if you look at history since 1999, we've always had election results, presidential election result outcomes that were contested, and typically status quo has always remained. So I think their sense is that that's the situation that would essentially prevail, and there really isn't any cause for any worry, particularly because, again, we've gone across that hurdle of election happening, and then obviously also looking at historical facts since the resurgence of our democracy. So I think that's what they are basically basing that postulation on.
All right, let's look at another international institution, the Wall Street Investment Bank. It actually advised traders that they should take profits on a long trade on dollar to naira. That's 9-month non-deliverable forwards. But then there's some speculations that this may lead to some sort of sell-offs, and possibly the outcomes might be bearish, so to speak. But then what is your take on this?
I mean, if they're giving recommendations to take profits on long positions, then if the clients heed that call, it certainly will lead to profit taking, and there'll be certainly some sell-off. Again, for them, it may be a call on where they expect to see the currency maybe before this year runs out. They probably are not very bullish on that, and that's the reason they made that call. It really remains to be seen if that to be heeded. I mean, we'll continue to see how the FX situation pans out in the near to the medium term.
All right, let's go back to Morgan Stanley. Well, he said that the Nigerian Stock Exchange turned bullish. Yes, just as I said earlier, on Nigeria's government bonds on Thursday, on hopes that Nigeria's president-elect will continue with fiscal and financial market policies. But then, would you consider this as some sort of vote of confidence for the incoming government, or you think it's a calculative, cautious step that it's being taken?
I think it's just market vagaries. For the fixed income space, yes, it's turned bullish, really, just on the back of the fact that there's quite a lot of liquidity. In fact, what I would describe as a wall of money in the system right now. Between this month and next month, we expect almost 3 trillion worth of maturities that will come in, maturities from treasury, bond coupons, automobiles. These maturities will come into the system, and they will certainly need to find a home. So all of that maturities coming through is essentially what's bidding up these prices, not necessarily associated with the outcome of the election. The truth of the matter is that whether we had elections or not, with that sort of liquidity, asset prices, particularly within the fixed income space, we're certainly going to rally, and that's what we're really seeing.
All right, Victor, earlier on, you talked about the possibility of a gradual phasing out of the subsidy removal. There have also been discussions around how Tinubu will tackle the multiple exchange rates, and of course the possibility of new refineries becoming functional optimally. And those are the keen concerns of stakeholders within Nigeria's economic space. Now, the question, of course, we know that in the past years, we've had different stories and discussions about how the government have been trying to phase out the subsidy payments on petrol. At some point they said, they actually removed it totally. At some point they said it's been in phases. At this particular point, we really do not know what obtains. But we want to know or understand what you think the standpoint of Bola Ahmed Tinubu would be by the time he gets sworn in. Do you think he would have the political will to deal with these three critical areas, functional refinery, fuel subsidy removal, and the multiple exchange rates?
These are policy moves that need to happen. At the end of the day, the truth of the matter is that when it comes to subsidy, it probably is a more political decision than it is economic. However, these are things that I think need to happen. Again, I don't expect that, the whole subsidy thing will be scrapped in one fell swoop. It only makes sense that it be gradually phased out, but in a really timely manner. The whole subsidy regime itself certainly needs to be appraised. So that in phasing it out, it's actually done in a very proper and an efficient manner. Like you highlighted, it seems like, that regime has been scrapped, but we still see it going on, so there's a bit of confusion there. So clearly there needs to be an appraisal of that entire regime, and then a really clear plan with definite timelines as to how, the entire subsidy regime will be phased out. That is a policy move that needs to happen to ensure that, the country is set on a very strong fiscal footing and on a sustainable fiscal footing. When it comes to FX, really, it's important that it is dealt with, and all of these multiple exchange rate are, harmonized. If we're going to be exchanging at a certain rate, let it be clear that this is the rate that everyone gets their rate, not a certain people get rate at a certain level, other people are getting rate at another level, where the market is essentially bifurcated. That creates, intractable problems that then to economic challenges that we continue to face. So the courage really is what is needed to tackle or to take on these policy reforms. As for the refinery, it's essentially largely a private endeavor. We've had a lot of indications as to the refinery opening at different points in time, which didn't happen. But we had a commission in this year, and the expectation is that, before the year runs out, things will begin to take shape on that front. And it certainly does have very strong implications for the country from a fiscal standpoint, really, once that refinery takes off. If we begin to source our refined petroleum products locally, takes away a significant chunk of that FX burden that then frees up resources for the government to be able to continue to tackle the FX situation that we have going on. So these are things that I think need to happen. There just needs to be a lot of courage around it. There can certainly be a lot of ways through which it happens, but happen it must at this time.
All right, finally, before just in a way to wrap things up now, I'd like you to just point out a few policies, because you've really hammered on fiscal policies that you think the next administration should create and implement in total to bring about some sort of economic growth for the Nigerian economy. So I would like you to just touch on that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do you think the next administration should be looking at?
It really isn't different from what I've said. Truth of the matter is that whatever other policy that you want to embark on, be it in the educational sector, be it health, be it security, you need the economic means to do that. The economy needs to be on a strong footing for you to take care of anything else. And that's the reason I've highlighted them in that order of importance. We need to get on a strong fiscal footing. We need that FX situation to be tackled. Once you are able to take care of those two, everything else will follow. You would have the resources to implement, far-reaching policies in the health sector, in education, and also be able to tackle the security situation. Absent resources, absent, a strong economy in the midst of an ailing economy, you really are unable to achieve much in these other areas. So again, the policies that from a fiscal standpoint, we are put on a very strong footing. Policies that ensure that FX situation is taken care of, to ensure that businesses can actually plan and thrive, really for me are paramount and top of mind.
All right, thank you so much, Victor, for joining us. We hope that, the government that is coming will be able to take this initiative and prioritize them. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.